Hey guys, so welcome back to Figuring It Out with Grace and Kaylee. And today we have a very special guest who is near and dear to our hearts. I am very excited to introduce you guys to Orlando. Orlando is in fashion production. He is a fashion stylist, currently working in Houston. It has been ambassador for several different fashion groups like Fashion Group International and Kaleidoscope Houston. If you're lucky, he will be his creative self and make you some custom denim, which I am featuring, and you can see on our YouTube channel. Check it out. Orlando, we're so excited to have you here today. One, because you have been an incredibly monumental figure in my life and our friendship circle. And two, you are a person that has been a creative in this crazy world and have grown and ebbed and flowed with it. And I think that there are so many people in our community, and myself included, who are super interested in exploring their passions and really like could use your voice and your lens to understand what that really means and what that really looks like.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet of you to say. That's like the best introduction ever.
Thank
I
you. I worked
am
really hard
actually
on it.
really excited to be here as well and to get to chat with you all. Because of course I've been, keeping up with figuring it out with Grace and Kaylee.
We appreciate our beginning, our number one fans. We won't forget you when we blow up.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But
But
yeah,
yes, I'm really excited to be here and to talk with you guys, a little bit about kind of what I do and, just my experiences.
yes, thank you. I think I want to start with like a brief intro to like how we met because I think it's really fitting to your story and your personality. Can I lead with that?
Sure, you love to tell this
I
story.
don't think
You
I've
love
ever,
to tell this story.
I don't think I've heard this story. I'll let you
Oh,
know if it jogs my memory. Okay,
it's
let's hear it.
it's a good meet cute, let me tell you.
Oh,
So, Orlando and I actually went to college together the last few years of college. I had transferred universities and we were both in the fashion program there, specifically called like I don't know, bullshit. It
Retail and
didn't
consumer
That's what
science.
it
The
was.
retail and
Retail and
consumer science.
consumer science. But we were in the fashion program together and they were trying to put together a club. And we had been nominated by one of our favorite professors, who was this beautiful Italian woman who had worked in fashion, brands, marketing, design. Like she was just a certified badass. So she had nominated us for this club. Well, start with the fact that Orlando and I were in all the same classes. And if there's one thing Orlando is really good at, is he always shows up and presents himself as someone who clearly loves fashion. So of course I saw him and I was like, I want to be his friend. So I'm like, just eyeing him down for a while. We were both like class pets. So we would always like kind of be trying to do the best presentations.
oh
Like,
my God, I hated y'all.
yeah.
I wasn't in that class, but I hated y'all.
We were the worst. So anyway, we got nominated for this club and we like got to meet each other. We were kind and friendly. So after we had our first like conversation, I'm thinking like, okay, like this person like knows me now, like we're friends. And the next time we had class, like the next day, he walked in, I'm staring at him and I'm smiling with my big eyes and I'm like waiting for him to look at me so I can wave and be like, come and he just completely ignores me. Like, doesn't even pay me any attention, just like la da 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 da. And I was heartbroken and I had to fight for his friendship for a long time. It was pretty savage, if I'm being honest.
And later on, being part of the same organization, we like got to know each other and like hang out. And in New York, we really, kind of like cemented our bond and really got to know one another. So like, it's when I first like heard you tell like one of your amazing stories that I was like, oh yeah, I fucking like this bitch.
Yeah, I won him over by telling him about I lived in these really um a really bad apartment complex and there was a gentleman unfortunately who was homeless but who like would just every night go collect like food out of the trash can. And so I started separating my trash for him because he startled me one day. Yeah.
Aww.
So Orlando and I, we bonded over me telling this story
Yeah.
over sake bombs in New York. And it was a forever friendship from there.
Yeah.
But you have always been someone that I know has been like so in love with fashion. Like even your content, who you are, conversations you can carry, like it's clear you love fashion. And I'm curious as to like when did that love affair begin?
Well, I think it's, might sound like cheesy or cliche or whatever, but since I was like little, especially, looking at like my mom and my grandmother who are, very like fabulous women who like love to like dress up and like love to, have their hair done and all of this. And so when we were younger too, it was like our like family outings were to the mall. That was like our thing that we would do like every Saturday and Sunday and stuff. And so like when we would do things like that, I think that's where it started to like grow because it became a thing that like my family and I enjoyed together. Like we were, would love to go to the mall and like go shopping and things like that. And so that's, I think, at the core of it, like where it started. But then as it like got on, as I grew older and started, just kind of like figuring out the things I knew, I was always like creative. But I started to realize that I had like a pretty like good sense of how to like put, clothes together and how to style myself and like others. And so it kind of just like developed from there. And then it became a way of me like, because I was like a chubby, kid, I was like, it was a way of me boosting my own kind of like self-esteem and like making myself feel good about myself, because if I wore something that was like really cute no matter my size, and like I would like get compliments and like, oh, you look so good, you're so good at like styling and this and that. And so it really kind of like went from there, that it started as something that made me feel good about myself too.
Totally.
I find that like whenever we are doing something we love so much, like it just speaks true to who you are, as like putting on, help me out here,
A
Grace, like
fabulous outfit and like
yeah, but it like when it gives the person like inner joy, like
mm,
it just
Yeah.
it creates just this ripple effect. And so when you're styling others, like we feel that energy.
beyond, because I know you there's been several moments in life where you've been my stylist, and thank God for it, because I love fashion and I have a unique taste, but you always like elevate it to the next level. And when you get excited about something, I get excited about it. And like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally get that, Kaylee. It is very much like I think it's in a sense of you're helping others, especially through like styling, and God knows like people fucking need it. So thank God for
Yeah.
that.
And that's like what you were meant to do, like you say from a young age, you felt that, like that is what you were meant to bring to the world. So it's really
Totally.
cool to see.
Yeah, I just kind of really want to like share that with others, make them feel as like confident as possible when and what you're wearing, because it really makes like a big difference. If you don't feel secure in like what your outfit is, like sometimes it kind of like, leads to these insecurities in other aspects. And so if you feel like powerful, like, in a suit, or if you feel just as powerful in like like workout clothes or like athleisure or whatever, then that's what makes you feel whole and like ready to take on anything. And so it's about like finding that style that's going to make you feel powerful. And I think I've been able to find that for myself, and that's what I strive to do with like any of my clients. It's like I don't want to like change your personal style. It's like what's going to bring out the best side of you. Let's try to figure out what that is. And so that's always like my mission in working with
Absolutely.
anybody.
I think you do like you elevate, and I that's clear. Like you just take what's already there and you elevate it and give it an edge or
Fucking water it.
sophistication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love
So
that.
when you were a kid and you were like, okay, I love fashion, you're idolizing, you know, your the maternal influences in your life. Like, did you ever get shit for that? Or was that something you kept quiet?
Um, No, I mean, I never really, I don't think I ever kind of like got in shit for it. I was like definitely, I had my own little sketchbook, or even in my notepads that I would like secretly doodle and a lot of times made sure I like crumpled up the paper and like threw it away because I was a little kid over here designing hats with like huge feathers on them and things like that.
Oh
In
my
like
God.
fourth grade, I was like sketching like dresses and things like that instead of like, traditional like little boy things. So I was always trying to like hide those things. So I still have like a few of those like little sketchbooks that I kind of keep around because I like go and look back at them and I kind of like obviously laugh because I was like a child and I would hope that my drawing skills have improved since then. But I think it was more kind of like a personal thing that I was afraid of, like others' reception of it. So I would kind of like keep it, hidden a little bit more. Um, but as far as like feeling like it wasn't kind of like accepted, not really. It was kind of one of those things that it almost just felt like it was just who I was, like people just kind of knew. I didn't really have to kind of like spell it out. I knew I was different and they knew I was different. So it
Yeah.
was just one of those things.
Okay, blunt question. Do you feel like people just like knew you were gay? Like, was that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. Uh, um, you know, Obviously they were like, oh, we don't know. And, they would kind of like never had the balls to like come and ask me or anything. And if they had asked me when I was younger, I'd probably deny it. But,
Yeah.
and that happened pretty often too. But so like it wasn't a thing that I was like really trying to hide. I was watching a lot of like America's Next Top Model secretly as well. And then I remember when I was in high school, I'd like tell people, it's like, oh, I like love that show, and be like, you do? And I'm like, yeah.
Did
Like, are
you
you sure? And like Project Runway and all of that, like, are you sure you're not gay? I'm like, no, I just like love fashion.
So Heidi Klum or Tyra Banks, who's better?
Ooh, well, you know, that's a hard, tough question just because, as we get older, we see some of the like more problematic things that like, especially with like Top Model and a
Yeah.
lot of the things they did. But Tyra Banks continues to be my like number one. She taught me so much about, the fashion industry and like it just in Top Model in general was like so like another one of those things that got me into like loving fashion. And so she definitely, I remember because I used to watch her talk show and everything, and but she taught me everything from like beauty and like runway because a lot of I did runway production for a while too, and that was all kind of most of it based on like what I had learned from just like watching things like Top Models. So definitely Tyra Banks.
Yeah,
I
and I
agree.
remember I was trying to take like photos for several reasons, you know, headshots, this, that, and the other. And Orlando helps, he styled me. And in addition, then finally we were like on set doing this shoot and I looked so like scared and constipated and like I just my face was so gnarly and so I remember you just coached me through that entire situation and yeah, I needed it. So maybe you learned it from Tyra, but like you definitely are a great educator for
Yeah,
sure.
anytime I have to take Grace's picture, I'm like, I'm not fucking doing this. She's like, I need Orlando. I'm like,
I
I
do.
can't, I don't know angles, bitch. Like, tell me where to put this. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like I said that I definitely attribute to like growing up watching like Top Model and everything. It's about finding those angles, that's
You
smizing.
have it. Like, not everyone has that, bitch. Like, you have it. You were born with it. Like, that's why you are
Well,
where you
and it
are.
definitely
Because
took
I don't
practice
fucking,
because
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, practice makes progress, but
yeah.
I mean, I guess I can maybe practice. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, just look at yourself in the mirror. I don't, obviously vanity is like, sinful and whatnot. But like a few like practices in the mirror, just kind of like figuring out your face and like your angles, what, it's simple and like super super beneficial for like knowing what it's going to look like on camera. So
Yeah.
Yes.
that's a little tip.
I'm
Okay,
curious.
so wait. I want to back up. I have a question, a selfish
Yeah.
question. So when you like were you knew you were gay and you were growing up in the fashion, just learning about fashion, kind of teaching yourself, did you have like a good support system? Like, did you feel comfortable to one day want to come out? Or was it like, I'm going to just act like I like boy things? Like, how did that look for you?
Yeah, I think my parents are definitely like supportive. It wasn't never like a thing that I didn't feel like wasn't that I didn't feel supported. It was just like when you're afraid of like living in your own truth because you're still trying to process like what your sexuality is and everything, because of course you're trying to suppress it and trying to like deny your true feelings. You're not even really being honest with yourself, so you're not really being honest with anybody else. So it's hard for, I think, parents to be supportive when your child isn't being truth honest or authentic with you. So it's hard to be able to provide that support, because I think if I had come out earlier, yeah, I think it would have been like fine, because it was it's just one of those things that it's like a journey, of course, because that hopefully is getting easier, for kids, I think. But it's just it's hard to provide that support when as parents sometimes you yourself just don't know how to be there for your child because you don't know what that journey is like. So it's about kind of like growing with them and like learning, as they go, and just trying to be there for the hard times, because sometimes it gets rough and things happen, and so it's just about being supportive in that way. But yeah, for me, for the most part, when I did come out, it the support was there. It's just also still, like I said, harder to kind of like talk about, because it's they just don't have the knowledge, like coming from like first generation like Mexican immigrant like household. They just they don't know how sometimes to approach the subject or how to talk about it. And so sometimes it's on us too to like, as the child, to like educate your parents too, so not like once you start to figure it out, and then you kind of like help them be like this or the other.
Okay. So did you kind of feel like it was society that, well, also you had to figure it out for yourself. And so,
Mm,
so your family members, keep a distance and respect that, right? And
yeah.
then was it society, just like the normal, like media, especially like back then? I don't think it was even as open as we are now, which I feel like we still have a long way to go. But do you feel like it was mostly just kind of, yeah, like society and the pressure of like the outside world that made you feel like you had to figure something out?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's just, I mean, and it goes back to being a kid in like school and everything. That's really where the it's like the biggest, it's where you kind of have to confront it the most, is because, you know, kids are always going to be the truth tellers, but are also going to can be really like mean and really like hurtful and say really like nasty things. And so as much as I could like push it away, kind of when I was home, and like kind of like hide that side of myself, you were always confronted with it, in school, whether you wanted to or not. Because like, as a little kid, like I always wanted to go play with the girls and like go, do everything that they were doing instead of like
I knew
going
you
to
were
hang
gonna make me fucking emotional, bitch.
out.
Ah,
Instead of like going to like hang out with the boys. And so it's hard, because that's where it's honestly the hardest, is when you don't have like that comfort of like, well, at least I'm with my family and they're gonna love me no matter what. And then so sometimes you're thrown into school, and as much as parents want to protect their child and about from the world, it's really hard to do, because you're you're confronted with a lot of things as like a young queer kid that you don't necessarily want to confront then and there, like I'm just a kid, like, and there's other kids asking me like, why do you talk like a girl? And it's like, I don't fucking know, this is just my voice, like, or you want to turn around and be like, yeah, because I'm gay as hell. Leave me alone. Like, what does it matter? Like, so it's just those things, and at the end of the day, children being ignorant or whatever.
But I also feel like you're someone that you have a very quick wit, and
yeah,
you can
not me
deliver.
agreeing with you, like, oh yeah, matter of factly, like,
You
yeah,
do.
totally.
You do. And I'm sure, like, too, I know we all have like family experiences and stuff. I know you have siblings, and so like sibling shit, you get like, and then school, I guess too, you get like tough real quick. And I feel like that's served you in life to have that like quick wit and really like.
Oh yeah, and I think it's why a lot of like queer people do have that. It's because it becomes like your defense and like defense mechanism, where if you can either make them laugh or like, tear them down before they tear you down, kind of
Yeah.
deal. Like, and it's unfortunately also why then, in turn, like, why bullies exist sometimes. It's because a lot of times bullies might be like hiding a part of themselves that they don't feel like comfortable, expressing. And so that's unfortunately why that happens too, is you start to kind of like project those things and kind of like, become the bully yourself so you don't get bullied. Or the other instances, you are the victim in that situation, and you get, because you don't know how to kind of like defend yourself in that sense. And so yeah, the quick wit definitely helps, because yeah, if you can make somebody laugh and it's like, oh haha, don't punch me or something.
I will fucking show up at school.
But I think too, like,
Sorry,
to your
Mike.
point, it really is like it's all projection. And I think we all, as we grow into being an adult, and when you're a kid, you're still learning, and you're not like aware of all these things. But it truly is, what bothers you in someone else is something you don't like about yourself. Like
Right.
it's psychology says
It's
it.
science. Yes. Fucking,
Yes.
it's research.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it is.
It
Yeah.
is. And so, and I don't know if there's like easy ways to have those conversations with children, because I don't, their brains aren't formed. Part of it is obviously like a behavior, and needing to correct that behavior, and like being on top of it, and making sure your kid isn't the fucking bully, because we all
Right.
want to believe our kid is the victim of things. And it's like, well, sometimes, little Susie is out there pulling hair. So we got to
Yeah.
check that.
As a mother, I would say giving your kid the space to have their emotions, like the bully, or someone who's going to say ugly things to the kids at school, they're hurt for some reason, and they need that space, and they need the comfort to share their emotions. So like, just give your kids space. And also, like, I know there's this and that about what you teach your kids about gays or not, but I am just pro, like, I am open with my kids, and there's Orlando in our life, David, my best friend. Like, it is what it is, and no one's fucking weird for liking this or that, a boy thing, a girl thing. Like, that shit pisses me off. So
Yeah.
Well, we're
At the end of
slowly.
the
Go ahead,
at the
Orlando.
end of the day, I think it can be kind of like explained, where you don't have to like go into detail about, like, I think necessarily sometimes like what an LGBTQ person is. It's more, at the end of the day, it's just like teaching kids like empathy, and like how to be empathetic, and how to be like polite, and and understanding of others without casting judgment. And I think as parents, sometimes people cannot, don't understand that their child is like looking and like hearing everything that they say. And so sometimes you say things off the cuff that may not even be directed towards a gay person or anything. It's just like a person in general that has like a different viewpoint or something. And you say something kind of like negative because you don't like agree with it or whatever it may be. And it's just one of those things that it's just like about, like, I think teaching kids to be a little bit more empathetic, and I think that can kind of like really help a lot.
Yeah. And I think that we teach empathy through going through unique and challenging and different situations and putting yourself in scenarios that aren't your comfort zone and like what you know and being exposed to that. And I
Right.
think we're, like you said, adults too, like everyone is guilty of that. I think yeah, it's like what do they call that? Confirmation bias, right? It's so easy to have your own ideas reaffirmed to you over and over again. And that's why Kaylee and I have talked about it on the show too. We've said like we're the first people to call each other out in Orlando. I know you do the same for me too, clearly. And but it's true, like needing to surround yourself with people that can like hear you, love you, and affirm you, but also challenge you when maybe your thought doesn't extend to the depth that it needs to, or maybe you're coming up
Right.
short on something where like you really could do better. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, having those conversations, I think as an adult is the first step. So you can then like teach it to your kids,
Right.
show them that by example.
Right.
So I want to know when you decided that you were going to live in your all fabulousness and you came out completely, do you feel like then you were able to really lean into your personal style and develop what now is like your brand?
Um, yeah, but like with everything else, again, it's like a journey. So like when you know, after first coming out, sometimes you just want to be like the most flamboyant self because it's been bottled up like inside of you like for years. And so literally after coming out, I was just like, I'm gonna wear the shortest shorts. I'm gonna wear like the, most like skimpiest top. Like I'm just gonna like gay.
What was the cringiest thing you remember wearing or like
Oh
you
God, there's so many.
We need pics.
I was literally trying to like, in preparation for this, like kind of like reminiscing and like looking over, and I was like trying to find photos of my first Pride because I was like trying to because I remember the outfit, but I can't I can't I don't know if I have any photos. Thank God. What I remember was wearing these like skimpy little like stripe like white and red striped shorts and like a blue like button up or whatever, and then I had bought these like really expensive like the most expensive sunglasses I think I'd ever like paid for at the time. And I ended up what I remember is like I was like having a blast that my friend and I ended up kind of like sneaking into the parade because it was like there was like an opening or somewhere, and so we just like joined the group that was like walking in the parade. And obviously at the time I was maybe like a little inebriated or something, and I just had the liquid courage, and I was just like, I had just come out, so I was like, I'm gonna walk into this damn parade. Nobody invited me, but I belong here, and this is where like I'm gonna come out and show out.
Oh,
So I remember like walking the parade and just like being so like happy and elated, and also just like being a mess and like twerking at the crowd and losing my very expensive sunglasses because they were like in my pocket or something. And like at the end of the day, I was a mess. But I remember it was like the wildest experience. It was like so much fun. And I was like surrounded by so many of my friends who were like allies. They were gay themselves, but they were there to support. And so like running into them on the parade route because they had lost me for a second, me and my other friend for a second. They're like, "Where'd y'all go?" And then they see us walking in the parade all of a sudden. So it was just one of those things that like when you come out, sometimes you just like you've been bottling up this other side of you, so you want to express it to like the full extent. And sometimes it doesn't turn out to be like what the your gender expression or how you really want to express yourself to the world. It's just this certain side of you that you haven't gotten to play with, and now when you're like the secret's out, you're like, let's go.
I I feel like I love how you call it a journey and like kind of discovering, yourself, and not to like limit, like we are whole complete people, and I keep
Right.
saying the word like self brand, but I think like especially now, even looking at like Instagram, right? Regardless of like whatever your profession is or what your hobbies or your passion, like your social media, your online presence kind of becomes this brand, right?
Right.
And you are someone, Orlando, you are incredibly successful at like showing your brand and your aesthetic and like really leaning into it. In my opinion, is because it's so authentic to you. It's so natural that it reads that way. But I guess for like the people that are on this journey and like you like you can like go online and you look at their stuff and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
clearly you're finding yourself. And like that's a beautiful step in your journey. I guess, do you have anything you'd recommend to these kind of people that are like exploring?
Well, I think at the end of the day too, the first thing I would say is like just be kind to yourself, because we all have this journey. Like you, even if you're not like going through this kind of like coming out journey, everyone looks back at things that they were doing when they were young and like cringe and like, oh my God, like what the hell was I wearing? What was I doing? And things like that. And so time goes on and you look back on these things. And if you don't cringe when you look back at like your life, if you haven't like moved forward and stuff, then you're not doing something right. Like you want to look back and be like, oh, I'm glad I've moved on from that. I'm glad I've grown as a person. And so that'd be the first thing. It's like just be kind to yourself in terms of like, don't be so hard if you haven't figured out like kind of like what your aesthetic or what where you're at. But also just kind of like look, because we live in age of social media, like you can kind of like look at what other people are doing. And sometimes obviously everyone's painting this kind of like perfect facade on social media, so take it with a grain of salt. But um it's about just kind of like finding what speaks to you, because at the end of the day that's never going to be wrong, because if it causes if it brings you happiness, if this is how you want to express yourself, then that's never going to be wrong. You might look back on it and be like, oh no, but it doesn't mean
That's
that it's
yeah,
correct or not correct.
I totally agree. I think though that's like where my struggle comes with like culture right now, because I feel like the easy thing to do is to like log on to Shein, which I'm guilty of, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like buy what's trending because it
right,
like versus like what something that is like authentic to me. And I feel like a lot of people, especially in fashion, like have a hard time learning like because we're so caught up in buying what's like the latest and greatest versus like
right,
learning what either complements our body shape or like the colors that look good on us or like
right.
even putting something on and feeling like damn like I like this, but we're searching praise over I guess
Yeah,
authenticity.
like, yeah, yeah, I get that too. Sometimes, yeah, you don't necessarily have to always be following the most trendy things. Again, like I said, it's just about like kind of like the way things make you feel. And sometimes just because you don't follow the trends doesn't mean you're not trendy. I think some of the most like the trendsetters are really where to look at. It's like those people who are kind of pushing the boundaries, who are taking the things that are maybe kind of like trendy, but like turning it upside down and like turning it on its head and making it weird and different. And so that's the thing I would encourage most people to do, is just kind of like play. Like it's at the end of the day it's just clothes. It doesn't have to be so serious. Like it is what it is. It's not gonna like make or break you. And so never also let anybody else do that for you, because even if it is you are following the trends and there is something that isn't particularly suited for you, but if you want to rock it, then freaking rock it. Like, do you, like, it doesn't matter what anybody else is going to kind of like think or say.
Do you shop, like what is your shopping go-tos? Is it do you thrift a lot or
I do. So I kind of do like a mixture of things. I never want to kind of like just go to one spot. I like to go to the mall too, although not lately. I'm an online shopper, I'll say that for sure.
same?
Definitely an online shopper. But yes, thrifting is also like huge for me, because I think it's where we need to be in the future. um and I believe that wholeheartedly, because we need to like stop being so wasteful with clothing. And so like Grace, you bring up Shein and like fast fashion and everything. Like, yeah, I own fast fashion pieces, and because it's the cheaper alternative. And but I also pair them with a lot of things that I've thrifted. And sometimes and some of those fast fashion pieces are thrifted pieces. Like you can
Yes.
find them at a thrift store and stuff. And it's about really like giving new life to a lot of those clothes that otherwise are going to end up in a landfill and are going to keep like, you know, negatively impacting our environment. And so that's kind of where my, you know, guilt with fast fashion lies. But I definitely, you know, you can find like some really cool designer things like at thrift stores. You just gotta kind of have that patience to look. And so, you know, if you're in Houston, we have some like pretty amazing thrift stores actually, and like new ones every day. And so
I'm
definitely like I encourage
so
everyone to go like,
fucking pissed because I moved to Austin and my favorite thrift store is in Houston. And I thought there's no way I wouldn't come to Austin and be able to find better thrifting. Like I was like,
yeah,
I'm gonna, and it's not. And if you're listening and you're like, you're Grace, you're crazy, like DM me and tell me where the fuck I'm not
right, like
going.
There
where
has
the
to be
hot
some
spots.
places.
No,
Yeah, I think so too. The only thing I think that's the, not to cut you off, but I think what's harder in places like Austin, I think because thrifting is also kind of
it
trendy.
becomes boutique.
Yeah. So
And
you're
it's
like, am I even in a thrift store?
I'm
This
not.
is
I'm
like,
I'm paying
Oh,
$80 for recycled Shein. Like, fuck off.
yeah,
Like, no.
yeah.
Not that it
that's
So that,
is. There
annoying.
are some really
yeah,
good boutique vintage thrift shops, and they serve a clientele and a purpose. And it's just not, I'm just not their clientele. Like that's just not me. But speaking of fast fashion, I think it's kind of crazy. Uh Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. Wait, but
I was gonna bring up, I don't remember the name of that documentary, and I like literally went and looked it up, but real quick.
yeah, the
okay.
price tag or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, Grace is gonna do a fast fashion. This will be an
The
edited
True
part
Cost, right?
oh,
No.
true cost.
Is
Is
that
it
it?
something like, yeah,
on Netflix,
Yeah, The True
HBO.
Cost. Yes. Okay. All right, ready? Speaking of fast fashion, I know we brought up Shein. It's like one culprit of many, and you totally touch on the point of how wasteful it is. I think it's kind of crazy hearing these stories that are like shared at least on social media about like people sewing in like pleas for help and like death threats into like Shein clothing or Zara clothing, right?
yeah,
But for whatever reason, like we remain unaffected.
in a chokehold. They got us in a chokehold.
They do. So it's like in between, human labor laws, child labor, like the disgusting treatment that people that are actually making these fast fashion clothing. Orlando hit on it with these clothes potentially ending up in a landfill where it's just, contributing to the waste. Then there's water pollution, the amount of water that is polluted in the process in these third world countries. Then their drinking source, their source for how they use fresh water is completely polluted. Like the shit sucks. It
Yeah.
stinks. I don't know how we get over that
Well,
other than to like continue to like push, like to your point, like go thrift, like go find those pieces, make it fun. But I don't know as a society or how we
I don't. Sorry for
click.
interrupting.
No.
I don't think there's enough awareness. There's not enough awareness about you go look, there's some cute ass shit on the website. It's cheap as fuck. No one knows anything beyond that. No one cares to know anything beyond that. So I think it's up to all of us to start talking about it because I had no idea until Grace brought it to my attention. And we're not going to dive too detailed because I'm making this bitch do a whole episode
Yeah.
on it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just think awareness.
Yeah, I think so too. I think awareness is definitely key. So people, you have to get it to people's conscious, like, let them know, like, do you realize where that's coming from or what that had to like go through, for it to be cheaper for you, like,
Yeah.
because it's like tough, but at the end of the day, I think there's not too much we can do as consumers. I think it has to come from the top too. Like these brands have to be like more kind of like willing to
give a fuck.
realize the environmental impact that they're having and put that over, profits and things like that, which, is like likely not going to happen
Well,
unless there's like a more viable kind of like,
Solution.
source and sustainable solution. Absolutely.
Consumers have to stop buying.
start voting.
Yeah.
The
Vote
only
with
way
your
they get
dollars.
attention, right,
Yeah.
is to stop
Like cut
buying.
them off.
But I
Yeah.
honestly, I'm an optimist by heart, but I'm gonna be honest, I think that awareness is like a piece of it, maybe, but I just don't think that I think people have a base level minimum understanding of it. And I think they have no interest in understanding it more because they don't want to, because they want to
Right.
continue to shop.
Yeah.
I think it's honestly about
Yeah, but
giving a shit.
I get yes, but like put that shit in their face. Like
Mm. Yeah,
you're
like if
Yeah.
you
this is what you're
confront them
doing.
head on and there's like
Yeah.
you can't really turn back from it. That's a good point.
Right. I think you can, and yeah, maybe it's about marketing that just as, ferociously as fast fashion is marketed,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because there's all these like influencers who are, getting these like, ASOS and Shein and they're being, sponsored. So they're getting all these hauls and then they're putting it on social media. And so it becomes obviously the desired and the trendy thing. And so I think maybe, environmental groups need to try some of the same tactics. It's like,
Yeah.
let's be just as aggressive as they're being with like marketing and letting people know the effects that, all of this has.
And that's
Because
what
it's wild.
pisses me off with like influencers, to your exact point,
Yeah.
because I do think that there are some influencer, not, I don't know, majority or not. I follow some that are very selective with where they buy or that they thrift or, they
Yeah.
shout out to like small brands,
Yeah.
women owned brands, things like that. And that's great. But like, I think, and if you're just like trying to hop on the scene, you're like, hey, like check out my Zara haul, like no shame in your game, like do your thing, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like you
Know
are
what you're promoting.
you are uneducated in what you
You
are
gotta
speaking
educate
to.
what you're promoting.
Right. And I think there's a way to do both with kind of like balance that. I
Yeah.
mean, if you do want to kind of like shop fast fashion and everything, like there's a way to kind of like combat what you're doing. And even in when like fast fashion tries to, there's like a few companies that are trying to switch into kind of like sustainable alternatives. Even those right now aren't kind of like that great.
Yeah.
They're it's still definitely flawed because they've like switched into this like denim that doesn't use as much water and things like that. But then the denim is like cheaper quality, and then it ends up not lasting as long, and so it still ends up
Oh,
being
like
tossed. And so it's this kind of like thing that they are still trying to figure it out. And right now, even the brands that are trying to be more sustainable are actually it's kind of worse in the
It's like
long
flipping it.
run. It's actually they're it's more kind of like it becomes like a marketing ploy as opposed to like an actual solution.
Totally.
So
This is the
people are like buying
same.
it.
This is eggs. This is eggs. Everything comes down to eggs because they fucking market on a carton of eggs. It's organic and it's cage free.
Yeah.
And we're all smart. We have learned, like, I wasn't smart at first glance. I was like, cage free, this is great. Well, all that means is that your chicken is in a 1 foot by 1 foot or like a 2 by 2, whatever the
Yeah.
regulation is. They're not roaming on grass,
Right.
and then it was like, oh, well, actually, it's not even USDA organic that you have to look for. You have to look for certified humane for it to actually be fair treatment of animals. It's like constant mind fucks,
yeah,
like
it is.
a
It is.
maze. It's a fucking maze. And I'm stepping on bombs all the way. But we will put a pause on fast fashion because, like I said, we will.
Yeah, I'm
we will
like, Grace,
continue.
people need to know about this.
I know.
I'm like,
Well, and
I didn't know about this.
Orlando, I'd love to, have you on and to continue the conversation of this at any point
Absolutely.
Yeah,
because
that
it's
would
a
be
fun
good.
one and I also feel equally as passionate about it. But I want to transition because as you talk about your journey, I have watched you turn into a cowboy, Western queer. I have
Yes.
seen you evolve into your aesthetic, but something that I love and I know you love even more is drag and drag fashion and drag culture. So I would like you to explain how your interest peaked and your thoughts around drag fashion and the community.
Yeah. Um, So I personally, well, I was gonna say I've never done drag. That's a lie.
Yeah.
I've done kind of like what you call like gender fuck drag. Like
No, we
it's
don't know what that is.
okay. So traditional drag is kind of like female illusionist. So you're trying to like be as pretty and and as female presenting as possible. But then gender fuck on the other end, it's kind of like more punk rock. Typically you're not shaving your beard, you're like slapping on some lipstick and some makeup and like a shake and go wig or something, and it's not necessarily always all like more female gendered clothing. Like it's more kind of, it's you're basically wearing whatever the hell you want.
Mm.
And so it's not, it kind of blurs those lines of like gender, and it plays with all of that. And so that's kind of like what I've played with, Halloween, whatnot. Most drag queens are born either Halloween or on Pride. Those are the two birthdays of most drag queens. It's Halloween or Pride.
Awesome.
That's usually when most drag queens are born. And so that's kind of like my kind of experience with it, has been through that. But also shout out to RuPaul's Drag Race, because that was like the first, I think, well, no, it wasn't the first time. Because when you think about it, we're all exposed to drag at a very young age. Because when you think about like all these like pop culture references, like Mrs. Doubtfire and like Nutty Professor, like Eddie Murphy, and dressing up and all these things, like it's there, but then you don't start to realize it in the queer aspect until like later on, if you're interested. And so I think RuPaul's Drag Race has done like an amazing thing about that. Like I remember the first episode I watched was, I think, the first episode of season 2, and it was a what they call the Gone with the Wind, I think was the name of the episode. And they're doing a reference to Gone with the Wind, and they sit the queens on a cannon and then like blast them with like wind, and so their like eyelashes are like blowing and their wig is like flying off. And I remember like watching it, and I thought it was like the funniest thing. I was like, what is this show? And at the time it was like on like regular, it wasn't even on like cable. It was like on like, I think because they were trying to like promote the show. So it was like on, regular TV channel. And yeah, I remember watching that, and I just like fell in love. And at the time I wasn't out yet either. So like I also, another one of those things that I was like watching in like secret, and then I remember like showing my friends like, oh, this show, it's like so funny, you have to watch it. And they're all like staring at me like, you sure you're not
Just say it. You know what? It's so funny because you introduced me to RuPaul's Drag Race, and my sister Megan, who actually ended up writing her thesis
right.
in her master's program all about drag and RuPaul's Drag Race and identity. And it's like a super beautiful and interesting thing. So what do you say to the gay community who's like, I don't like or I don't get drag?
Well, I think the beauty about drag is that it really can also help you find your own identity, because like I think RuPaul said it multiple times, you become another person when you put on a pair of cha-cha heels and a wig. Like it's like this other side of you comes out. It's this this alter ego of yours that is very much part of you. It's just like something that you don't necessarily express, and a little frock and some heels will like really like bring that out. And so I think that's kind of sometimes maybe what people might be a little hesitant with. It's like, it's not wanting to identify with like drag or anything, even though you're identifying with the stories, you're identifying like with the stories of these like drag entertainers, and what they've been through, and all of these things that you can relate to. And you're like, but I'm not a drag queen, well, I'm not feminine, I'm not going to do that. And so I think that's like the hesitation with it. I think it's because it can make you confront like a lot of the things that sometimes people aren't ready to like talk about, or confront with themselves.
Do you think you could have that same message applies to the heterosexual community who
Oh,
doesn't understand drag?
oh, absolutely. And even like, I think the first time I ever really like was around drag queens, I don't think I was like fully out yet. We were definitely at a gay bar. I was there with friends, and it was just like somewhere me and even a bunch of like straight friends would go. And I remember seeing my, first drag queen in person, and it is a little intimidating. I'm not gonna lie. It's like I don't know what it is like about. Maybe it's just because you see this like statuesque or like this, outlandish kind of like character, and like, in one living their authentic selves and being, and just there's something about it that's at first it's a little daunting, and especially if you're not out or if you're not fully like you're still on your journey, like it can be a little, I don't want to use the word scary because it's not scary.
Intimidating.
It's definitely intimidating. But like I said before, it boils down to the fact that it's like it's hair, it's makeup, and it's like clothes. Like, so what about it is it that like it's supposed to be, intimidating or scary? It shouldn't be, it's just, it's
Yeah.
just a person in excessive makeup, or it's I think also the excessiveness of it all, because you're not used to kind of encountering people like that in your everyday life. So I think it puts you in with like someone who's, being big and bold. And sometimes that scares people.
And it's just, it's not as common. Like you don't go to lunch and like see, which like, fuck,
We
Well,
should.
now
common,
there's a
like,
drag brunch on every corner. So
yeah, well, yeah, and celebrating them, but just like going
yeah.
to like anything and just seeing, it's something special when you
Oh,
see, so it's different and it's intimidating.
absolutely. Because you're not used, like I said, you're not used to seeing somebody like that in your everyday life. When you see somebody wearing a costume like that, or hair like that and stuff like that, they're usually like an artist, like a performer, and you see
Yeah.
them maybe on TV, or you see them in a play, so when you see it at a bar or something, I think it's like it's breaking that kind of like, this mystery of like, oh, it's okay when I see it on TV, or it's fine, but once it's in person in front of me, it's just like, oh no, it's too much. So I think that's what it is. It's that you're just, you're not used to seeing something so bold in your everyday life. Yeah.
And I think should be more expressed that like it's an art.
Oh,
It is an
absolutely.
art. Like there's musicians and artists and whatever. Like drag is an art and it should be like respected. These are fucking human beings going
Yeah.
out and living in their truth, entertaining at some points, and it should be celebrated and not we live in Texas.
Yeah.
So period. So I don't know.
Yes.
I feel like it
At
should.
the end of the day, it is an art form. And honestly, it's an art form that's like exponentially growing thanks to things like RuPaul's Drag Race and thanks to like social media. And the queens these days are like mind blowing. Honestly, the artistry is wild.
They do
And
their
it's just like,
makeup better than me. They do their hair better than me. These bitches are coming for my man. That's
it's
what
like generally they're just like, constantly like topping themselves like I am. And that's, I think, what I find so exciting. It's the fantasy of it all.
yeah.
It's a fantasy, and it's so beautiful to like get immersed in, to get lost in it. And it doesn't have to be so serious. Like drag takes the piss out of like, out of things, everyday life, and things that are too serious and are really hard to deal with. So it makes it easier to deal with those things, because if you can laugh, if you can like joke about it, it makes it, it makes it easier, and it makes it okay. And so I think, drag really helps a lot of people with that, is to process life and to make, feel like life is going to be okay, because we're gonna laugh and we're gonna like joke about it later. And that's what drag does. It's, about not taking life too seriously, and about joking about those like hard things to process. And RuPaul says it best when it says like it's about the tenacity of the human spirit. It's like we can get through anything, we can do anything. And drag queens are the only thing, that make me feel good about the world we live in right now.
Yeah, and how can you shame someone who wants to, have those feelings and spread that positivity and feel good? Like, why is
Right.
it up to you to judge and to who gives a fuck what these people are doing?
Yeah.
It makes them feel good and it's a community and it's spreading love and joy, period.
That's
Yeah.
why we struggle, or I struggle with honestly living in Texas, because we are such a live and let live like mindset, but when it only comes to like specific topics, we're very selective on
Yeah.
like who we want to live and let live. And I have some friends who recently, actually, they're older, they're like in their 60s, and they left the state because they didn't feel like Texas was moving in a direction that was supportive of their lifestyle, of their marriage. And I was sad. I mean, it makes me sad. It makes me sad to think that or feel that. And I just continue to see it's weird because I want to hear your perspective. From my point of view, it feels like community, culture, people, my community, my circle, all only grows in their understanding and their perspective and their love and empathy for people outside of themselves. But like policies, politics, things in that world continue to like move in the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially like towards, the LGBTQ community, like definitely being like attacked constantly through, the bills that are that are trying to be pushed forward. And even
Just the
in
narrative.
and yeah, and drag, for example, there's so many bills right now that are kind of like trying to ban, or trying to limit spaces that drag is allowed in, which is becoming a real issue for a lot of like for the entertainment industry and for a lot of like nightlife and for LGBTQ people in general. Like it's really, really tough. Which I so it's hard and to understand, when people feel that way, because you're like, again, like I said, it's just clothes, it's just makeup,
Just clothes.
it's just like a wig. So it's just like I don't understand this like huge kind of like fear, although obviously I understand where it's coming from. It's become like a political platform to
Yeah.
attack, queer people. It's become like a whole thing. And trans individuals also who like also participate in the art form of drag. And so it all of that in general, we've become the targeted group for unfortunately a lot of right wing people. It's just like we are now the boogeyman that they're using to kind of like further their own platform. And that's what it boils down to. It's just like we've become the scapegoat. It's like, oh, it's like the fear of, oh no, there's drag queens like coming for your children, when of course the statistics don't like support that at all. Like, your kid is actually probably safer at a drag queen
Then
story
out of
hour than
school. Then out of
exactly.
Yeah.
school.
I don't get that. Like, I
But
don't get that.
I think that what it is, and what it is, like you said, it's become the platform, it's the narrative. It's not even that it's like a widespread belief. It is just so polarizing, and the community that
Yeah.
believes it are so
Yeah.
fucking loud. Like
Yeah.
they're loud and they're just so extreme that's what we're hearing, and that's what the media is gonna like pick up on. But like I have to believe in my heart, like, well, I don't know. Yeah. I have to believe in my heart that majority of people, don't feel that extreme, because you can not
Yeah.
like want to participate in something and also not like be like scared of it.
Because I don't think even people fully who push that, like people who push that narrative, I don't even think they fully believe what they're
Fuck
pushing.
no.
I don't think
No.
they fully feel like it's actually that dangerous. It's just, their platform, and they're inciting like violence towards queer people. And that's what they're doing. They're riling up their voter base. And they're
Yeah.
choosing this platform because it works. It's worked for them. And it's like, oh, let's make this thing that people aren't, like you said, they're not familiar with drag or with like what goes into the artistry and things like that. And so they incite this kind of like fear, when the fear isn't really there, because like I don't even think most people are that, well, obviously homophobia is like prevalent, but
Yeah.
I don't even people are that homophobic. I think it falls into this like umbrella of like multiple things that are like societal issues, like patriarchal like society and misogyny and all those things. That's what it boils down to. It's just like you want to keep attacking things that are not, you know, the norm, which is like, you know, heterosexual and like straight male and all of these things. You know, it's that's where it all comes from. It's where what they use to kind of like incite that fear. It's this fear of the unknown. It's this fear of like, oh, it's something different. But and it's not, because again, like I say, it's drag has been around, like the art form of drag has been around for so long. Like some of our favorite, you know, pop culture moments are like people in drag. Like you see it on TV shows. You see so many like acclaimed actors. Like, oh, when it's like a straight male, you know, actor, they're getting like accolades. Like, oh my god, he dressed in drag. Like how brave and stuff like that. But when it's a queer person doing it, it's like, oh no, we have to like, I have to protect myself and my kids because they're like coming after me, or they're gonna, you know, whatever. And I understand that not all drag events are geared towards children, and they're not marketed that way. There's the nightlife type of drag, and then there's, you know, there's like the drag that, you know, people are doing to go do like drag queen story hour and to do things like that. And so it's there's drag for everyone. There's a type of drag for everyone, whether you realize it or not. It is like you see it, you've known it, you love it. You just, when it comes to this like specific kind of like queer drag, like for some reason people separate those two things, even though they've seen it, you've seen it growing up, it's been around, and I guarantee you've probably loved it.
You've loved it. And I
They'll
think
deny
like
it though.
too, it's what's scary
Exactly.
to me is I think if someone or something that you support or believe in is pushing a narrative onto you or telling you flat out that you should despise, not like, be afraid of something, you should question that without a doubt. Like,
Yeah.
even if it's something like my mom could sit there and be like, you should hate whales. You should hate them. They're scary. They're fat and we have issues with it. And that should be a trigger to me. It's like, but the why? And I think sometimes what I've fear is that people stop asking the why. It's like we just accept and we're
Right.
not like, but why? Like why?
Yeah,
Why?
nice
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah.
is that, or whatever the fuck that saying is.
Yeah. But no, I appreciate you sharing your love for the art form because I think it's amazing, and honestly some of my favorite memories, like, here's what's funny. When I was like 16, and we told a story, Kaylee and I were partying at clubs and nightlife and did the whole bar scene, right?
Mhm.
And then I graduated to my early 20s, and then Orlando took me through this entirely different experience where it was like I would only go to gay bars and gay clubs and drag shows and things of that, which I was like so grateful for because if you've ever, even like now, it was honestly a little different when Kaylee and I were kids, but like now, if you were to go to a straight bar and then go to a gay bar as a woman, where am I going to have fun? I'm going to have fun in a place that's safe and where people are authentic. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're getting compliments and left and right, and people are just like living, loving, thriving. Like that's
Yeah.
where I want to be.
The environments are totally different, and not to say they're just like, I'm sure there's like lovely
Yeah.
straight establishments and, you know,
That
everyone's
Orlando will
welcome.
never go to.
No, I would. I
I'm just
do.
kidding.
Shut up.
I'm just kidding.
No, but it is the environment of it's totally different. And sometimes it's something that I guess, you know, queer people are struggling with too, is that because, you know, queer nightlife is so vibrant and so fun, and it's welcoming to everyone, that it almost seems like we're starting to lose. I think we're afraid of losing our identity as the queerness of it all, and it being overtaken, because yeah, honestly, at the end of the day, gay bars are shit ton of fun. They're a shit ton of fun, and we do want to be welcoming to everyone, and like everyone should be there to have fun. But I think even, and I can say this for everyone who is, you know, if you have been or plan on going to queer or gay bar, just understand like that there's history at the end of the day there too, that you have to kind of be respectful of, because these spaces weren't always as vibrant and weren't always as accepted or safe spaces for people, because they were like they were the center targeted for so many years, and it was like had to be very underground and had to be very hidden. And so sometimes these bars that people are partying in and you're having blast are the spaces that also several people are like, got arrested in because they got raided, or because things happen, or maybe somebody was like, gay bash or something like right outside of it. So you have to kind of like be cognizant of those things and be respectful of that at the end of the day. And so that's just something that I would hope people keep in mind. It's just like, gotta understand there's history there, and there's some dark history there. And so I think that's why queer people are so protective of our safe spaces, because we don't want anybody taking it away. We don't want anybody changing it. They're lovely. It's a beautiful time. Everyone's just there to have a good time, and especially with like a heightened violence towards queer people, we also have to be very cognizant of that. So we can't just like let anybody in there, because we've seen multiple times, unfortunately, the devastating and tragic things that have happened all over the US, where bars are being mass shootings are happening way too often in queer spaces. And so that's why I think people are protective of it, but we do want to be welcoming, always want to be welcoming, and let everyone in on the party.
Yeah, well, you
That's
are a soul and a spirit to do that, for sure. That's what I love about you. Even though you were not inclusive to me when I tried to become your friend,
Whatever.
you
you had
are.
to up,
I was
Grace.
not
No, I had
not
to work
inclusive.
for
I was
it.
protective.
I get
Again, you
it.
do, as a queer person, you grow up kind of being a little bit more protective of yourself, because you never know how people are going to react to it, how people are going to react to you. People get your personality or get where you're coming from, and so you tread lightly, because you never
You
know.
have a coat of armor on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're always kind of like on high alert, especially when meeting new people. You're like kind of, and I can say that for myself, because there's some beautiful, lovely queer people who like could not give two shits about like what other people might feel or like think of them. And so they live their life 100% authentically. And unfortunately, those are the people who are like, sticking their neck out in the forefront of representation, and sometimes they get the brunt of it. They,
Yeah.
they face the hardest things of that. And so I think it's just about kind of encouraging everyone to be a little bit more open and the gay community as well. Because there's some toxic things that are part of our community as well, that we need to deal with and handle. But we're trying to work it out.
Everyone. I think Kaylee and I are happy to be allies of the LGBTQAI plus. Did I get that? Cool.
Yeah, I think you said that right.
Okay. We'll fact check it and I'll cut it out if not. But I want our audience, I know we're closing up on time. I want our audience to know, one, where can they find you if they have an event that they need an outfit for, if they have they're starting a new business and they need to stop looking so frumpy, or even just like for me, casual streetwear, like I just like to go out and feel cute. Where can people find you and reach out to you for you to help with their styling?
Well, first and foremost, my Instagram. That's like my baby. So that's also the best place to reach me at. And then that is the Orly choice. So it's like the only choice, but with an R instead of an N. So definitely reach out to me there. You can ask me anything. Sometimes, I give free advice, which I, should start monetizing on, but I want everybody to be fabulous and be lovely. And so I'll always, lend a, a tip if I can. You can always ask me simple questions, but yes, you can also ask me about like styling, booking me for styling or anything like that. So that is definitely the best place to reach me.
You guys, I swear by Orlando's styling, I have been in many a pickle, and Orlando has just gotten me out of it by helping me out and letting me look fabulous and allowing me to be confident and feel like my best self. Because it's true, you're in a bad fucking mood if you don't feel cute. At least I am.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. Oh my God, we've had so many, like, I know we're wrapping up, but we've had so many, like, beautiful instances. And also just like, just craziness where I'm like, yeah, just bring your like nude pumps. Like, bring me your nude pumps. Like, don't you have a pair of nude pumps? And she's just like, no, I didn't. And I'm like, what are you doing with your life? You don't own a pair
never
of nude pumps?
forget. I'll never forget the nude pumps and also the black fucking belt. It was like,
Yeah.
just bring over your black belt. And I was like, I don't own a black belt. And he's like, these are staples in your closet. And we remember I was like, I was about to like fucking cry. I was like, you've got to stop with suicide. I don't.
So I can definitely help with those things. Like if you just need to know kind of like a list of like, those like staples that you should add to your closet.
Yeah,
That's also just simple little tips and
I
tricks.
need
And I
that.
definitely like offer things like that where it's just like just keep a few of these things like in your closet because it works with like a variety of things. It's like those like essentials. And yeah, I'm
Definitely.
always like hounding Grace and we're like, yeah, just get like, wear your little white sneakers. Like you don't have a pair of just like classic white sneakers. Like what's wrong with you?
No, literally. It was constant conversation. I also want to know if you could leave our audience with any piece of advice, any intention that has served you, what would that be?
I think it's like, I can say, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like, don't take yourself and like life too seriously. I know I'm still kind of like working on that. And so it's one of those things that I say it to you just as much as I say it to myself. It's just like, because everything we've talked about today, it feels like that's been the center of it. It's just like not taking life too seriously and giving people the opportunity to play in their own journey. So like don't be so quick to cast judgment. Don't be so quick to like make, you know, these like ideas of other people. It's everyone's just trying to like figuring it out. So just like, be gracious with yourself and others and don't take life too seriously. Play with your clothes. Go in your closet and just go try on different things. And even if you don't have anything to get ready for, go and play in your closet where you don't have anything to get ready for so you don't get flustered and and like when you're like trying to get ready because you're like, well, I need to figure this out for tomorrow, or I need this right now. I need to get ready and I need to go. Because if you go and play in your closet on your downtime or in your leisure, then oh, well, I put this outfit together the last time and now it fits perfectly for this situation. So go and play in your clothes and don't take life too seriously.
That is literally my mantra for the next week. I'm going to go dive through my closet. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Orlando. Seriously.
You
Yeah.
are
Thank you for
amazing.
being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing your truth and for reminding people like that life should be fun and that we need to go
Yeah.
play. I really appreciate
Yes.
it.
Thank
All
you for
right.
having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening and joining us. And we look forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.